Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Spiritist Talks that is hosted and promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation. We are very happy to be with you today and to have this opportunity of receiving our dear friend Daniel Santos that is going to be giving the talk today to us. But as always, we would like to invite you to join us in a prayer. And we ask you to unite your thoughts, your hearts with us so that we can begin with our prayer. We elevate our thoughts to our Heavenly Creator, asking for the blessings, the protection we need, especially in times that we are seeing so much suffering around us, asking for the good spirits to be with us, to guide us, and more in particular, Daniel, that is going to be giving the talk to us today. May you all in your homes feel the presence, the love, and light of our brother Jesus and all the benefactors that labor with him. And we ask in this way permission to start this part of our program. So again, thank you so much. Thank you, the United States Spiritist Federation YouTube channel, the International Spiritist Council YouTube channel that is also transmitting our talk today. Welcome, Daniel. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Jussara. I'm doing very well and very excited to be here today and share some information about this important topic, the love label, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, Daniel and I, we have been friends for over 20 years now.
Wow.
It's been a journey, right?
A good
And
one, right?
a very good one, a very good one. I cannot wait until to see what we are going to be doing together in the next 20 and other incarnations as well. So
more work, right?
a lot of work, absolutely. And so we greet you and everyone that is joining us now or that is going to be listening to us later. Let me first introduce Daniel. Daniel Santos is a co-founder and currently the president of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore, Maryland, the United States. He's also part of the board of directors of the United States Spiritist Federation, and professionally he works at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, as an interdisciplinary scientist. So, welcome, Daniel, and may you be blessed and inspired in guiding us in the necessity of labor.
Necessity of labor. Thank you, Jussara. Thank you, the United States Spiritist Federation, for the invitation. Especially this weekend, that we will celebrate here in the U.S., at least in the U.S., the Labor Day. It's a very important time for this country regards to holidays. And so when I was invited to share some of my studies here, the first thing that came to my mind was what we're going to talk about, right? And I think it's very appropriate to bring what Spiritism has already taught us that we learn from the codification, especially from the Spirit's book about label. And that's why the title of our reflection today is The Necessity of Label. So in order for us to um, um, discuss a little bit about, okay, is label something that is just imposed to humanity, or it is something that we can find everywhere in the universe, even in nature? So we will take advantage of the teachings of the Spirit, the Noble Spirit. And in the Spirit's book, part 3 of the Spirit's book, the title that is entitled The Moral Laws. And the law of labels is one of them. But before we bring some of those questions that Kardec has already addressed almost 165 years ago to the superior spirit, we like to start by bringing this idea of holidays, right? And why we need to establish at least one day every year to celebrate Labor Day, right? And this is very important because as a society, at some time we need to stop and to reflect upon the laws that govern us, our society. And the necessity of work is something that is imperative. We all need to work, right? But spiritualists come and bring a different view. What is labor? What is work? Our professional work is considered labor, but when I'm at home doing my clean my house, or when we are talk to someone, is this also considered labor? So we're gonna see all this as we move on in our presentation today. So let me bring some reflection here for us to start and reflect upon this topic, the necessity of labor. Um, I know that sometimes we don't want it to work, we don't want it to labor, we just want it to sit down and relax. But even those people that doesn't have, that are considered impaired, they are required by the creator to work. We're gonna see all this question, right? So stay here, and I promise that you're not gonna regret to revisit together with me some of those questions that Kardec has asked and has beautiful answer done by the enlightened spirits. So I would like to start with this quote from John chapter 5, verse 17. And this is a situation where Jesus was in this place that called Bethesda, and there is a pool when people goes, and all kind of people to be blessed by the water. And so what happened is, so there is this gentleman that was asking for help because he wanted to get into the pool, but no other people was not able to let him get in. Then Jesus came and asked if he wanted to be healed. He was a impaired person. So, and then Jesus was able to heal the person. But there is a problem in that day, because that day was the Sabbath, was a Saturday, was the day that, according to the Jewish laws, you are not allowed to work, right? And Jesus replied, and in defense of of himself, when the authority got to know that Jesus has been the one that has helped the man, so Jesus replied to the authority by saying, my Father is working right now, and so am I. So this is to tell to us and set the tone of our conversation that no matter how much is your limitation, the creator, and even Jesus, that was the representative of more like, I would say, in spiritism, the pure spirit that came to teach us about the laws of God, the divine laws. He was telling us that, the creator never stops to work, and we work all the time. Why we, the creature, wanted to be excused of, labor, of work, right? So this is for us to set the tone of our conversation as we move along to the questions and answers that we find in the third part of the Spirit's book. So since we're talking about the third part, so we're not going to spend too much time in the laws or what the third part is talking about, but the third part is entitled the moral laws, okay? And Kardec, in order for us to comply with the divine laws, he organized those laws in a very didactical way. So as we can see, and let me put my cursor, if you can see here, so the law, the way he organized those laws has a meaning, and if we look very careful, we're going to find out that was not by chance. We may ask why he started with the worship, law of worship, and then he moved to label, the law of label, reproduction, preservation, destruction, and then social laws, progress, law of progress, law of equality, liberty, and justice, love, and compassion. Of course, there is the natural law or the divine law that's not here. And also there is another law that is the law, I forgot now. There was a blank here, but so after those 10 laws, there is another chapter that discusses about be perfect, right? So if we look at the first law, law of worship with the divine law, it's pretty much our obligation, our duty toward the creator, right? So we all have this innate on us that we need to worship something, okay? We say creator here, but other people call God, Allah, doesn't matter the name, but it's our obligation at first with the creator. And then we look for the next four law, label, reproduction, perseverance, and destruction, as a duty or responsibility with ourselves. You know, we have the responsibility, we have the obligation to work, to label, reproduction, preservation, to self-preservation, and also eventually destruction, that is, you know, the destruction of the old man, morally speaking, right? But even our body will be perished at someday. Then this is our responsibility with ourselves, you know, and this is like very personal, right? And then we move to the third part of this didactical representation of the laws, that is social law, the social law, the law society, the law of progress, equality, liberty, justice, love, and compassion. So those four laws, five laws, they are the laws that we are responsible, or we have the duties toward others, right? So basically, it's our charitable work that we need to do it. So we live in a society, so we need to comply, we need to help. Also, we need to strive to progress, right? And to respect one another. And also respect, you know, has the freedom to our freedom, but also granted freedom to others. And finally, justice, love, and compassion, that kind of summarize, you know, this the way that Kardec put didactically divide those laws. But today, why he did that? He did that because at the end, what we all need is happiness, right? Is the ultimate love, is to achieve that unconditional love that Jesus brought to us. But we cannot achieve that that level if we don't comply with this law. And I think the way Kardec organized the third part of the Spirit's book was very, I would say, clever, was very didactic, very well done, because that give to us a guideline how we need to navigate in this life that we are incarnate, but also among others that surround us. In other words, the society, right? So, because at the end of the day, once we comply with all these laws, we achieved what Jesus brought to us, that is love, the unconditional love. But before we get in that level, we need to make sure we are in compliance, we understand, we really put in practice what those laws means to us. Everybody, there is no one that is excluded from these laws. We are all embedded in this environment that we need to comply with this law, you know, in a different level, right? So, and then one of the things that in question 621, and sorry, it's cut it over there. So there is the question, why the law of God written? So Kardec asked the question, okay, so we have all these beautiful laws over there, but where we can find that? And the answer is simple: in the conscience. But you may ask, Daniel, but How come? I see people over there when I look at watching TV, I see that there are some people that this law was missed. Was, God forgot to put those law in their mind, in their conscience, right? No, we all have. There is no exception in divine law, the divine laws. So what sometimes happens is that some people, they they don't want to exercise, because now we have the free will. As we become spirit, we have the free will, and the law of freedom, right? And so each one of us is responsible, and is in the same time, it is entitled to do whatever we want, but there is consequence, right? So when we talk about in the conscience, it's like the law was there as a seed, right? We need to cultivate, we need to put in practice. It's not put as set as in stone, right? So nobody's perfect. We live in a planet of trial and expiation, which means that like, I would say evil, but unhealthy action still prevail compared to healthy ones, right? So we still have a tremendous amount of suffering that is not imposed by God, but it is product of this free will that we bring in the level as we are, as a spirit, incarnated spirit. So let's go to the questions. That is very important. This part of law of label, Kardec has pretty much 11 questions. We're going to bring some of them here. But all of the questions is important, because really, I believe he covers almost everything that right now in the level that we are, it is important for us, right? And so one of the questions, that's question 674, he asked, is the necessity of label a law of nature? So let us read the question. I'll give a little moment for you to read the question, because it's very important to extract what Kardec wants really ask the enlightened spirit between the line. Is the necessity of label a law of nature? In another word, in a plain language, he's asking like this. So in nature, so everybody needs to work, right? In the universe. So the work, that the label that we do here also is a necessity everywhere in the creation. And the answer is, label is a law of nature, and as such is a necessity per se. Civilization obliges person to work harder, because it's increased both their needs and their enjoyment. The first part of the question is like a direct answer. Yes, is a law of nature. But what caught our attention is the second part of the answer. Because the first part of the answer, and I'm going to highlight here, say that civilization, which means us, society, obliges person to work harder. And the question here is, do we need to work harder? And then he completes, because it's increased both their need and their enjoyment. Wow. So the key word here is increase both their need and their enjoyment. And here we can reflect, we can give a pause and reflect what the enlightened spirit is trying to tell us here. Because, I mean, like, okay, it is a necessity of nature, but sometimes what happens is that we overwork, right? Because we wanted to have things that probably we don't need it, right? And increase our enjoyment. Which enjoyment is this? Is the real enjoyment, or is this temporary enjoyment that we create for ourselves? And sometimes we work harder over hours because we wanted to buy that expensive, property. But when we look at if that is something that we really needed, maybe the answer is no, I don't need that expensive one. I can get one that is less expensive, but will suffice my needs. So sometimes we get lost in our incarnation because we wanted to have things that is not necessary, but because of society, even because of our own um, 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 enjoyment. So we find ourselves in a situation that could be avoidable, right? So, and when we see enjoyment, what is kind of enjoyment? Okay, it's not wrong to have expensive things. There is nothing wrong with that. The question is how useful that will be to help in our evolution or to help others. So I think sometimes we forgot to ask this question. We forget to ask those questions. And then we put ourselves in a situation that we have to, work much more than we need. And then when we look at our lifetime, we may miss moments that we should have done, that we should have spent more time. For example, it's very um, common, the complaints for children, because sometimes the parent needs to work harder, and we are not here in the position of judgment, but sometimes the end goal is to have things and not to spend time with the children. And then we can create a problem, right? So I think in this answer here, if we look careful, the spirit say, look, civilization oblige person to work hard. So Daniel, what this means? Well, sometimes we cut ourselves in a situation that we need to have things because my neighbor has, because I saw this in TV, because someone in my work has. No, we don't, unless you judge that things that you need to have will really helps, you know your evolution, or help some capacity your community. But we need to ask those questions. So every time we decide to um, work harder, we need to ask, okay, what is the end goal here? Why do I need to do this extra work? If I do this extra work in this area, what other area is going to be lacking, right? And sometimes we compromise even charitable work, because now I have to work, now I have to do this, because I need to buy this, I need to get this, I need to pay this. So these are reflection that we need to do it. And thanks God, I mean, this teaching help us to kind of like put in perspective what is useful, what would be superfluous, right? So the next question, very interesting, because it has to do with this professional work that we are discussing now. Kardec asks, should we understand by label only material occupations, professional, right? Or do things physically? And the answer is no. The spirit's labels as does the body. Every useful occupation is labeled. So everything works, right? And we highlight. So redefine label. Let's redefine works here. Works, according to the Spirit's teaching, or label according to the Spirit's teaching, is every useful occupation. Then what this means? Every useful occupation. If you are cleaning your house, because by cleaning your house, you are create a better environment that will avoid you to have disease, or get hurt by, things in the middle of the house. So you need to put things in their own places. So it's a useful occupation. If someone calls you and you really spend some time listening to the person, even if you are not saying anything, it is a useful occupation. It is work. Well, also doing well our professional work, doing well our professional work would be a useful occupation, because sometimes we have our professional work, but we are not even we are not doing what the definition is saying here, because we are not doing the work well. So it's not useful. The product of that work is not useful. So by definition, according to this teaching, it's not labeled, right? It's something else, right? If I'm like gossiping or talk bad about someone is not useful occupation, right? So you are just waste time. You are wasting time in your reincarnation, right? So it's very interesting for us to put this in perspective that even people that doesn't have a professional job right now, they can be useful, they can be working, right? So this is a different way to see that everywhere, the driveway, in the highway, if you are driving, in the supermarket, if you are talking to your neighbor, if you are even watching news, it is very important because the answer here is that the spirits labels, okay? Let's pretend that, okay, I'm not doing any physical work right now. I'm just watching news. So that moment that we are in front of a TV or reading a newspaper or read a magazine, is very important to do that in a way that would be considered a useful occupation. Then by definition would be a label, right? So the way we emit our thoughts to our neighbor, to other people, can be helpful or can be not helpful, right? And this will impact in our evolution as a spirit. So it's very important for us to have this in mind. And I think this is the beauty of this teaching is that invite us to redress, to redefine really what our actions, right? To redefine our actions. So, and be this useful instrument that will help humanity. There is a question, I think is in the second part of the Spirit's book, when talk about reincarnation. And the question is about what's the objective, what's the aim of reincarnation? And the answer that the spirits give is that reincarnation has pretty much three main objectives, right? First, redress previous mistake. Second, helps help to improve ourselves, like we learn to become a better person. And third, to improve society, to help in the creation. So we have pretty much this responsibility to help in the creation, okay? Whatever we do here, even in the area of thoughts, will affect the environment of our planet. What's happening right now in Afghanistan is not my business. It is our business. Why? Because it's our house, it's our planet. So what should I do? I'm not in the position of make decision, but I can help by praying, by emit good vibration to everyone. Because at the end of the day, this is our house, and humanity is our family, right? We are not going here to the different culture or to different behavior of people, but at the end of the day, it's my responsibility toward the creation. So if each one of us stop and do what we are entitled to do, it, that is use our thought to affect in the environment, the psychosphere of our planet, um, knowing that there are people in different levels of evolution, definitely will be doing this useful occupation that we call label, right? So now, one of the questions that you may ask, okay, so what about the animal kingdom? What about the animals? My dog, my cat, why they don't need to work? Do they need to work? Do they need to label? And Kardec addressed this question as well, question 677. So he said, everything in nature's labels, animal label as we do. So no one, no creature, no organic life in this planet is excluded of label. Watch the the Discovery Channel, one of those documentary that we have on TV, History Channel, about the animal kingdom, right? It is not a fun kingdom. All those species, they need to label harder in order to survive, right? But there is a difference. There is a difference what it is labeled in nature, what is labeled uh, in the humankind level. So the question is, what's the objective, of this label in the animal kingdom and in the human kingdom? So one of the things that they answer, the United Spirits, that in the animal kingdom, the work is limited to their self-preservation. But it's work in that level, right? So, but that work does not lead to progress among that species. The progress in this sense that they will get more organized, they will like create environment that will be more protected. No, the pretty much the work they do is ruled by this sense of self-preservation, and is connected to the instinct level of that species. So if you think about all organic life in nature that's not human life, from the germ, from the insect, from the lions, from all fishes in the ocean. I mean, they are not spared to do what they need to do to survive, right? And this is considered work in nature. So whereas in the humans being level, preservation, so the objective of this work is to preserve our physical body and to develop our thought. Here is something that is important for us to reflect, is that once we have a physical body, we need to have a maintenance of this physical body. We need to feed the body, we need to take care of the body, but also we have our mind that now is the intelligent part of the creation. So to develop the thought, to develop our intellect, is part of label as well, right? So by doing this, that will lead to progress among us. So Kardec has already set a path here to tell us, not Kardec is asking the question, but the enlightened spirit to say, look, nobody is excluded from work. Okay, even those that you think that's not working because they're impaired or they have some kind of limitations or 100% limitation in their physicality, but if they are able to think, they can work, they can label, right? So the other reflection that I would like to bring is about the type of labels, right? So we know that the physical label was something that was very intense in the beginning of our society, our evolution as a human being, and we have the intellectual type of label, right? As we have mentioned already. So with advancement of our society, technology, so the physical labor is getting less and less, right? Because now we are creating more machine, more equipment that is kind of like not needed for this hard physical. Although in our planet, we still find a lot of physical labor, even in the big cities, right? We still have types of work that physical labor is a necessity. But is we are seeing by looking the evolution of society that the product of our intellectual advancement has brought to us a lot of advancement in terms of communication, for example, as we are like talking here to live to other people across the planet. Also Transportation has been something that has advanced so much. Nowadays, we can cross the globe from one side to another side, even go around of the planet in less than 24 hours. It was something that we never conceived like 300 years ago, right? It was kind of impossible. But because of the challenge that we need to face, we are put in a position to use our intellect, right? And that is the label, of course. That's work by definition. So, and sometimes we overwork, right? Like this picture is showing is very interesting that this person is like surrounded by so many, papers over there, and it's just to show to us sometimes we miss the point and we work harder. And of course, each one of us has our own um, explanation why you need to work harder. But the question is how harder we need to work and make sure that we are not compromise other areas of our life. And I think the question and the answer for this is time, right? Is how much time we are putting in our occupations that is a necessity because we need to bring food to the table, we need to pay bills, and how much time we are putting in exercise our intellect in order for us to really be doing a charitable work toward other and toward ourselves. So all this question need to be put in perspective and need to be answered individually, right? So maybe the amount of time that I need to work is not this physical work. I'm saying physical work or professional work. It's not the same time of someone, our friend or someone else needs to do it, but we need to compensate and we need to ask the question that, okay, how much this that I'm doing is useful, is a useful occupation that will help not only myself, not only my family, but help society as well, right? So all these questions can be answered individually, and also we need to put in perspective of time. We're gonna see pretty soon how much time we need to put in work, physical work. And that's what comes next is the limit of label. And Kardec addressed this question. He really wanted to know, okay, let's put in perspective that in that time, in the middle of 19th century, 1800s, so we didn't have laws that regulate how long, you have to work. Was up to your employee. People sometimes used to work 12 hours a day, 16 hours a day. There is no regulation for that. And the necessity to limit the labor, the work class, brought what we call nowadays, we celebrate the Labor Day, the holidays, because it was a conquer that we as a society have to come up. And of course, every time we need to change something, it's not easy. There are a lot of conflict in that time. Only the beginning of the 20th century that was implemented, 8-hour work day, right? So if you wanted to know more about how we achieve this work hour a day as a law, as a regulation that we follow nowadays. Not every place do that, of course. If you have to work a little bit extra, so you get paid for that, that would be what the law required. So was very intense. Was not conquered overnight. We have a lot of accounts, especially here in this country, in the U.S., in other places in the planet. How many strikes the work class has to do it to achieve this 8-hour workday. So Kardec asked the question, what is the limit of labor? Okay. And the answer is, the Spirit didn't say 8 hours, 12 hours. No. The limit of strength. Besides, God gives freedom to humankind. So it's the limit of strength. So why, you may ask, why the Light Spirit didn't give a number? Because before the answer about what's label is any useful activity. So if any useful activity considered label, or any useful occupation is considered label, then you can work 24/7, right? And also was already defined that there is two kinds of work, the physical and the intellectual, the intelligent work, the intellect, the development of our intellect. So if we are not doing a physical work, the spirit, we as a spirit, we can continue work by exercise or developing our intellect, right? So, and also the second part of the question give a mention about the freedom, but God gave freedom to us. So if we wanted to, now work 8 hours a day, the professional work, we can work more, right? Um, but the question is that actual work that we are doing, what's the end goal? Is just for enjoyment? Because many people is doing that. I wanted to do extra work because I wanted to have more material thing. And I'm lacking time or relationship with my family. So at the end of the day, it's just enjoyment. There is no evolution in the sense of the evolution of the spirit. We kind of get caught up in a loop that I work hard, I get and enjoy and go back, work hard. And so this is the kind of reflection that is very important for us to do, because many of our problems nowadays, especially related to finances, is that we wanted to have enjoyment and we don't measure, how much is the income, how much is the expensive, and then we end up um, um, ourselves in a very difficult situation, financially speaking. Of course, this is just one area of the work, the label, right, that we are discussing here. But also in question 682, the answer of that question, Kardec, the spirit, the superior spirits mentioned that rest, to rest our body, restore strength of the body. And it is necessary in order to give a little more freedom to the mind, enabling it to raise itself above matter. So once our body is at rest, our mind can continue work, right? So during the night, when you go to sleep, our body continues work, and our mind, can go to places, right? And even if we are like just sit down and relax, not doing nothing physically speaking, doesn't mean that you cannot work, you cannot label. So in fact, when the rest enable us to, develop our thought. And sometimes that's a good thing, because sometimes we need that time, the rest, for us to think about new projects, how we solve new challenge, relationship challenge, And the beauty of this teaching is that when we give time for this moment that we call rest, we maybe get tuning with other minds, right? That will either potentiate, that for good or for bad. Depends what is in your intention, what problem you wanted to solve, what project you wanted to achieve. So all this is very important for us to reflect, because we can really minimize a lot of our problems. You may be asking over there, Daniel, I don't get it. No matter how much like I stop and think about how to solve my problem, it is still a big problem. Well, let us redefine what problem is, because maybe that challenge is an opportunity to grow, is an opportunity to exercise some areas of your life that is stuck, needs to be exercised. But once you open your mind for the possibility, or embrace the situation as something that will help us to evolve, eventually those problem will be resolved, will be minimized, right? So it's very important to rest, okay? And the limit of our strength. Maybe if you can work 10 hours a day, doesn't mean that your co-worker needs to do 10 hours a day. Maybe They just need to do 5 hours. At the end of the day, the quality and how useful the work will speak for yourself, right? Um, Martin Luther King has an excellent quote about work, about labor, and he said, "All labors that uplift humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence." Like, should be undertaken with a very extreme excellence, very careful. We need to, we need, and for that, we need to ask the question, what is uplifting labor? It's something that when we do, it's not only gonna help yourself, but also will be a reference for humanity. Then who am I? Well, we are children of God, right? We are child of God. So we may not have an impact in terms of a big, in a great scheme of our planet, but as Joanna de Angel always mentioned about, that a we are an example to someone, even if we are like doing something that we are being the example to our children, for example, to our neighbor, to our community. So it is already a dignified work and it has its importance. So in another word, what Martin Luther King is saying here is that whatever labor you do very careful, do with the intention that the product of that work, of that labor, will not only help yourself, but also will be a reference for the society. And can be anything, can be in the material level, but also can be, in the way you express yourself, in the teachings that you bring regard to some, important thing that will impact society, right? But then we may ask, okay, what about, so then we may ask, what about the people that rich people? Do they need to work? What about the impaired people, and children? So all this question is addressed in this part of the law of labor in the Spirit's book. And it's very interesting because sometimes we have this idea that if we have a lot of money, if we have all the needs, material needs, we don't need to work. And that's another thing that we learn with the Spirit's teachings, that thing is not like that, right? And let us revisit what the enlightened spirits bring to us. Are the rich exempt from their law of labor? And the answer is very interesting. From physical labor, yes. From physical labor, perhaps. But not from the obligation to render themselves useful according to their means and to perfect their own and others' intelligence, which is also labor. Giving much, you have a great amount of time for doing good. So in another word, as much as giving to you, more is expected from you, right? So maybe the physical labor, yes, because now you have, you are rich, you don't need to go and do the physical labor. I mean, like, we can put in perspective the physical labor as well as the professional work, right? I don't need to drive every day to a certain place. So I have all the means, the material means to stay at home. Although nowadays, because of the pandemic, majority of us is working from home, right? So it is still work, but we are not rich. I mean, unless there is someone over there that doesn't need to work, professionally speak, because you already have all the material means, that's fine. God bless you. And also there is a but here in the answer that is expecting you to do, more, And I like when they say that, when they say use it for according to their means and to perfect their own and others' intelligence. If we have all the means, material means, let's help to perfect others' intelligence, like by create projects, by donate or fund organization that will help other parts of our community, right? And if you have a great amount of time and you're gonna be, in that case, you have a great amount of time, so you expect you that doing good, right? So very interesting that nobody is excluded. Nobody is an exception. In God's law, in the divine law, there is no exception. Everything is perfect, okay? So what about the impaired, people that has limitations? So when we talk about impaired people here, we are talking about physical limitation, but also mental limitation, right? Uh, they are excluded of this law of label. So let us see what is the question and the answer. Aren't there those who are incapable of working at any time and whose existence serves no purpose? And the answer is, God is justice and only condemns those whose existence voluntarily serves no purpose, because they live by, depends on others people work. God desires for all to make themselves useful according to their own faculty. So we are not expert. Everybody is invited to do something, right? And those that cannot do it voluntarily, so it's our obligation that to help, right? What we cannot do it, and that's what the advice that we get from this answer, is just sit down and complain and think that we are an exemption of the law of labor. As we mentioned here, um, there is the mental impairment. If you have some kind of mental limitation and they have a good physical body, of the physical body that, the other limbs, the other members work fine, you can be trained to do something that doesn't require you to exercise your intellect, right? In the opposite, the same. You have what great example here is that scientist Stephen Hawking, right? That was completely paralyzed, but he never stopped working, and he brought a great um, um, he brought great discoveries, right, about astrology, astronomy, not astrology, astronomy, and the result of his studies really have advanced in terms of technology, right, in terms of equipment, and they understand about the universe, the cosmos. So that's an example of someone that was completely paralyzed, but his mind was work perfectly. So each one of us, we can contribute at some capacity. So right now we are at the end of the Paralympic Games, right, in Tokyo. So, and we are watching some of those competitions, and it's amazing, right? It's amazing because we see some athletes that really has a visible physical limitation, and they compete as, if I have to compete with them, I'll definitely lose, right? Because, and the question is why they develop that skill. Practice, repetition, repetition. In nature, we learn by repetition, repetition. So if we have some kind of limitation, don't sit down and complain. Try to do something and keep repeating that until one day you're going to master that in a way that the label of impaired is very relative here, right? Because someone that we see with limitation, they can exceed in another area, and vice versa, right? And sometimes we are impaired morally speaking, right? We have the mind and we have the physical body that is in perfect condition, but morally we are disaster. We are impaired, right? How about children? And this question is more related to the relationship between children and parents. Does the law of nature impose upon children the obligation to work for their parents? And I think this question, let's put in perspective, this question was put in that time, 165 years ago, where children was, required to work very early age. Nowadays, with advancement of our society and the protection to protect children to work until they have a certain age, 18, depends of the regulation of each place. Doesn't mean that children cannot work. They can do their tour at home. They can do, based on the definition of label, they can do those kind of work. I think the question here is more related to the professional work, right? To the label, to the physical label work that Kardec was comparing with the adult, right? And the answer is certainly, as parents must also work for their children. That is the reason why God has made filial love and parental love a natural sentiment, in order that by such reciprocal affection, the members of the same family may be led to mutually help each other. This is frequently not recognized in your present society. And this was asked 165 years ago, a little bit more. So yes, the parent has the obligation to work to provide means of education and preservation of the children, but later the children also has the duty and the obligation to help their parent. It seems like second nature, right? But as the answer said, this is frequently not recognized in your present society. So there is different cases here, right? There is situation like that after the children build their own family, they kind of neglect to forget their parent. And we are not going here to the true reason of that question, because each one of us, we have the family that we are supposed to have, right, in order for us to evolve. But ideally is that we should help them, because at some point in their life they help us when we are children. And so so this is the perspective of what spiritism brings to us in relation to children parent. And also we should not forget that honor your father and your mother, your parent, is one of the 10 commandments, right? So it's very important for us to have this in our mind, no matter how much suffering some parent has imposed to their children. At the end of the day, they gave you life. So to find that kind of like reflection is very important for us, to free ourselves from commit something that later will be checked by the divine law, that because we didn't honor father and mother, because they didn't treat you as well. So there is a long discussion in this area. We don't have time to that, but I just wanted to put out there that we have a personal obligation to help those that also has helped us, right? So about retirement, and we are almost the end of our presentation here. Kardec asked the question, do humans have the right to retire in old age? And the question, yes, they are limited by their strength. So now when we talk about retirement here, we are talking about the material work, the professional work, right? So, and we know that in our society, we put money aside, we save for retirement. And we are under this, okay, so yes, it's going to reach a time, 30 years, 40 years, doesn't matter. You define how long, how many years you're going to work before you move on to the retirement. So, but here is the thing. The answer said they are limited in their strength. So the strength here is more related to the physicality, right? The age of the body, the physical body. The answer doesn't mention about our intellect, right? Because our intellect never age, right? The machinery will age, because if we are, under the laws, the physical law, the organic life, yes, will perish sooner or later. And then Kardec have a follow-up question. But what will aging people do? And then he specified those who must earn a living but cannot. So about those that, get in a certain age but doesn't have a retirement plan, doesn't have means to survive. So what they do, right? And the answer: the strong should work for the weak. In that absence, in the absence of family, society should replace it. That is that is the law of charity. Very interesting this. So if the person cannot, because they don't have any savings, they don't have any retirement, family should step up and help, right? In the absence of family, society needs to take place, the community, right? And this is very interesting because somehow our society is built, the system of government is building, especially in a more developed place, to step up in this area, right? So we have like Social Security, for example, here in the U.S., we have certain program, Medicaid, Medicare, that helps those cannot, um, 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 help by themselves because of certain of um, personal things, and then that would be the expectation, that family helps, and then if family is not there, the society should have programs or system that will help those people. What we cannot do it is neglect, is forget people and let people perish without any help. So the law here that help us to mitigate and to fulfill our duty as a citizen is the law of charity, right? And to finalize, I would like to bring back what Jesus said in that passage that we find in John chapter 5, verse 17, when he was accused to perform healing in a day that was forbidden by the Jewish laws. And Jesus replied, "My Father is working right now, so am I." And finally, there is a quote by Benjamin Franklin that says, if I can put it here, uh, don't leave till tomorrow what you can do today, because we are all in this work in progress, right? So because of time, I would like to stop here and bring Jusara. And thank you everyone for spending this almost 1 hour reflecting on this concept of law of labor.
Okay. Oh, that was
Hope,
wonderful. Thank you so much.
hope.
Can you hear me, Danielle?
Yeah, I can
Oh,
hear
yeah, yeah.
you.
Okay, because for a moment we lost your sound.
Yes, okay.
That is so important and so special for us to have this topic today. Like you said, celebrating this weekend, Labor Day. So it's important for us to talk about it, to understand the importance of work and how spiritists actually are capable of understanding the value of putting themselves into useful activities. But we have a lot of questions here, so let's start going with the questions. Bruce Ness brought to us, with materialist anarchy present in our world, how does one count this mindset of our globe presently?
Thank you, Bruce, for your question. Yeah, this is something that we have a lot of discussion about this top materialist, right? And so we may have different answer for this question, but I would like to bring one aspect, is that our society has been living under this materialistic idea since we are, living a physical body, right? So this phase that our society is going to go through, What counts here is how much time we devote to materialistic ideas. I know that we have a lot of discussion about materialism, socialism, Christianism, spiritualism, but the question is, we have a personal responsibility. We, I mean, you, Bruce, myself, Daniel, Jussara. So, although there is group of people, and this idea is formed because people is vibrating that level of give attention to something that is just temporary, right? Our body is made of matter. It's a material body that will perish, right? So we see one of the things that we learned is that when we approach the moment of death, if those people that is very materialistic, you know, they will shaking, they will do a deep reflection. We learn this. There is a lot of account about this. So the idea in the system of materialism has, depends how you see, has his advantage, because all the advancement that we have nowadays, material advancement, is product of this mindset of, you know, how can I improve this to live better? But at the end of the day, when we go home, we need to turn our mind from this materialistic idea to an idea that how can we evolve, morally speaking, spiritually speaking, because matter is a creature of God, right? And when we talk about materialism, we may forget that is the idea is where we put our idea. It's like Jesus said. So where you put your mind, your heart, there is your heart, right? Something like that. Josara can help me on that. So is the intention, well, if the system of government is acting in a materialist idea, we are responsible for that, right? We have our share on that situation, because nowadays, I mean, representative of people that his kind of mindset, somehow we contribute for that, right? And we like to talk about others, about the materialist people, but sometimes we forget that we also has a behavior that is very materialist, right? And sometimes we wanted to get that big TV. Maybe we don't need to have a 120-inch TV, but you know, a 50-inch will help. So this is called also materialist idea. The question is that how can I use those idea to help myself, to help my relationship, to help my community, right? So I hope I answer your question, but feel free to drop a message over there and bring your comment. All comment is valid here. Josari, you're on mute.
Yeah, that's so much noise outside today. I had to put myself in mute. Thank you, Daniel. Let's see if we have some more questions. From Bob. The author Edward Carpenter expressed the view that only through the development of man's inner divine nature could disease and suffering be eliminated from the world.
Well, everything depends how you see a disease, how you see things, because animals has disease, right? Nature has disease, in the sense that what is disease, the definition of disease. I think sometimes we have this impression that, you know, we're gonna have a physical body that never is gonna die. Okay, we can prolong our life in the physical body, yes, but the decay of the function of our vital organs will happen no matter what. There is no pills, no vitamin that keep us living for, you know. Now we can see disease as a moral disease as well, Bobby, and thank you so much for bringing that. But at the end of the day, yes, the question is that let me read again. To the development in advance. The question is, and he's right. Ed was right. Like at the end of the day, we need to make this, as Joanna Judge brings to us, the inner journey, right? To do this check and balance, right? What I what I have been doing today, as also as Saint Augustine advised us to do it, the reflection, what is my role in the society? So what can I do to become a better person? So all these questions, the golden rules, all these questions is the key for us in a long term, right? And sometimes we just spend time in the little time that we have here. We put all that on, and we forget that we are much more than just a spirit in a physical body, right? And I think this reflection is valid, you know. So uh, the way we see disease, the way we suffering, changes as we evolved spiritually speaking, right? So we call nowadays problem, disease, suffering, but if we have 5 minutes, if we be able to have 5 minutes to have an interview with the creator, and for example, I'll put myself here, Daniel, okay, you're gonna have 5 minutes to interview God. So I'm gonna play God now. So it's possible that God is gonna turn to me and say, "Hey, the universe is perfect. Everything works very well. Well, we have some planets, some constellation that they're still in the infants, they're still rebellious, but in the great scheme, in the great picture, everything is under control, right? So for the creator, everything is educational, is happen for us to one day become, close and too close to that creation, that creator. Well, we are not saying here that we should not, because our language cannot, define, of course, suffering problem, and this is something that happened for us to help us to evolve. Daniel, is not fun, is not enjoyable. Yes, sometimes it's not enjoyable. Depends how we see that situation. An experience can be enjoyable or not. Depends how we face the situation, right? So can be, my answer is more philosophical than straight to the point, but sometimes we need to have this approach, the philosophical approach. So in order for us to really not lose the tracking of our evolution. All right,
Next
you're
question.
mute. Okay, go ahead.
Yasko. Great topic, Daniel. Labor has been misunderstood as punishment from God and by extension by the society. The more one is in the bottom class, greater is the punishment. With inhuman and humiliating slavery labor conditions is still in our days. How, even in very spiritualized societies, are humans still shamelessly perpetuating this labor definition and its application?
Very complex question that demand a very complex answer and more time to reflect. Thank you, Yas, for your comment. Yes, I think for the first part of your question, we need to start to redefine what label means, right? We come from a several generation with this perception that labor is something that cannot be enjoyable, right? And it's something that is kind of imposed in a very punishable way, and that needs to change. We need to change the way we see label, because that's not it's not going to help us in any capacity in our evolution, right? um, so regards to spiritualized society, well, this is the misunderstanding of the law, right? So we have people even um, that claim that they are very spiritual, they are very moral elevate, but it's just like, doesn't put that in practice, right? And we should not be here um, judging one another, because we are in different level. At the end of the day, we're gonna we're gonna pay. we're going to face the divine law sooner or later, right? So to end, to finalize the answer of your question, what comes to our mind is that, don't worry too much what others doing, okay? Worry about what we are doing now. Doesn't mean that we're not going to reflect, we're not going to put our idea out there. But even if we have to do this, let's try to do it in a charitable way, right? Trying to understand the level that others are, because we are not in a higher superior level anyway. We are still like learning. Maybe we exceed in some area, but not in others. Maybe we are not in that people shoes or that community. So there is history behind that, kind of justifies some type of behavior. If that behavior is right or wrong, only time is going to know. If it is wrong, there is time to end, right? If it is wrong, there is time to end. And have this closing look, but also has this, big picture look, I think is an exercise that we need to do as a human beings. I hope I addressed a little bit your question, yes.
Yeah, all those things are so complex, and I think we have to look at the context of the occurrences, the time that we were living, and how exactly how Yasko put it there. During the time of the nobility, so to say, would be the way they would see work. If you have to work, is a disgusting thing, and nowadays, especially the way Daniel explained so well, we in Spiritism understand that it's very important for us, for our spiritual development, to use all our possibilities, to put our minds, to put ourselves into something useful. So we will see how wrong we were in thinking that a life of idleness would lead us to gain anything. But we still have another question. Let's go to the following question. The governor of Nosolar have worked incessantly for 200 years at the time of the publication of the book. How can we better understand it?
Great point, great question, and thank you for bringing that, because that's one of the things that we learn with the spiritist literature, right? We have the Andrea Luiz series that has so many examples about work in the afterlife, right? Because sometimes we think that, okay, so I want to die, I'm tired of this work, and then when we wake up in the other side, we may face a situation that we need to work double. And that's a very interesting passage from the book Nosso Lar. And the government never, as you mentioned, has worked for 200 years, and the government reserved his position not to take any vacation, right? And he explained this, that, when you reach that level, so the work becomes enjoyable, right? Is the enjoyment is work. One of the questions that also we learn, I think is in the book Action and Reaction. No, it's in the Spirit's book. There is a question, and forgive me if I don't remember exactly the source. There is a question that Kardec asked. So, what about in the very evolved world, evolved constellation, so where only pure spirit or very evolved spirits live? What's the enjoyment? What brings them happiness? Right? Because sometimes here in this planet, in this try and expiation planet that we live, what brings us enjoyment is have material things sometimes, right? I'm saying here in the average. So the spirit asks, well, when we achieve that level, so there is two things that bring enjoyment to those high evolved spirit. One is the thirst to know more about the creation, because it's still a mystery sometimes for some of them. And the other is to help less developed worlds to evolve. So when you achieve a very high level of evolution spiritually, then we work the double, right? And that work is not considered even work, it's considered enjoyment in another sense, right? So it's the same thing is happening here with the governor of Nosua. He's already in a level that doing continual work unstoppable is make fulfillment, is bring that enjoyment that for us here sometime is material things. And the material things is something that can, you know, is a product of desire, right? So I wanted to have that new car that was launched in the market. So after I drive for 1 year, I'm done. I wanted to get another one. So it's very I would say mundane. It's very low compared to those that is in a very high spiritual evolution already, right?
Right, so that's it for today. Thank you so much,
Wow,
Daniel.
the time flies.
Yes, it does, right?
Wow.
It does fly. So, if you have any words that you would like to say before we go to the closing.
I just would like to thank first the initiative of the Federation to allow us to share this teaching, the beautiful teaching of Spiritism, and also to remind that no matter what is happening in your life, um, just think that, it's just temporary, right? Keep your mind open for new possibilities. Also, give some time to reflect and to open your mind so you can also receive um, some of intuitions, because we are embedded in this environment of waves, of vibration, of thoughts. And 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 sometimes when we feel that there is no solution, is because the only solution is for us to stop and open our mind to receive a new insights. So I hope you enjoy this weekend, reflect a little bit upon this topic of Labor Day, and do a reflection on your own life about your professional work, what you are doing that is helping the society. Um, Treat your work as a blessing, opportunity for the evolution, not only of the society, but for yourself as well. I think all this analysis, all this reflection will be very helpful. So, and thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Would you like to announce the our talk for next week?
Yes, yes. I thank you, Jusara. And look, guys, please come back next Saturday. You know why? Because this series of talk is not going to stop today, right? We have a lot of work ahead. And next Saturday, we're going to have our dear Jusara Corn Gold. She's going to be here. I'll be here as well, but behind the scene. And she's going to talk about prayer in challenge time. Remember, next Saturday is going to be what? September 11th. And we all know what happened, especially here in New York, the place that she's living, in September 11, 2021, right? 2001, right? And so I think it's a moment for us to stop and to reflect upon that time, but also to pray, right, Josara? And I'll be here, like, waiting to see what, new insights you're going to bring to us. So please tune in next Saturday, so as we continue with this series of talk.
Thank you so much, Daniel, and thank you everyone that was with us today. And as always, as Daniel said, every Saturday we will be here together, always having someone that is going to bring us more food for thought. Daniel, would you like to
Yes.
do our final prayer, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Josara. Thank you, everyone. Let us take this moment and raise our thoughts to our Creator, our spirits mentors, those that has overseen our lives, to continue protecting us, but also help us to bring the necessary help to those that doesn't know yet how to pray, is not yet connected with those teachings that we have reflected today, let us exercise the best of us and send this moment of vibration to everyone in this planet, to those that has helped this nation, the ones that has worked harder to build a better society for us. Let us pray for those that has be a great influence in our lives, our teachers, our parents, friends, our community, spiritual community as well. And may we all have a blessed weekend. Reflect upon this message that we discussed today that is embedded in the law of labor. And so be it.